The last decade has been a wild ride for Roman Reigns. He debuted as one-third of the Shield. They were one of the coolest and most popular factions in wrestling history. After the Shield split up, WWE chose him as the face of a new era. But the harder they pushed Reigns, the more the fans started to rebel against him. The fans pleaded for a heel turn for years, and in 2020 they finally got their wish. And it was clear that Reigns was a natural heel, and the fans just loved to hate him. 3 years later, people are tired of him once again. The never-ending Universal Championship reign is starting to feel well and truly out of date. In this video, we're going to take a closer look at the relationship between Roman Reigns and the WWE fanbase and find out why he became one of the most hated men in wrestling history. Before we start today's video, if you like this kind of content, a thumbs up and a subscribe would be much appreciated. The Shield debuted at the Survivor Series in 2012, and they made an immediate impact. The trio looked incredibly cool in their SWAT-inspired gear, and fans loved their entrance through the crowd. They certainly talked the talk on the microphone too. The Shield were like a breath of fresh air. They were edgy and real, and most importantly, they were super over with the fans. As a team, they seemed unbreakable, and fans felt there was still plenty of mileage left in them, and they could have got on for years longer. And that's what made this moment so shocking. As Rollins smashed Reigns in the back, it was clear the era of the Shield was over, making way for each man's singles career to begin. After his betrayal, Rollins immediately turned heel and aligned himself with the Authority. Meanwhile, Dean Ambrose ditched the tactical gear in favour of jeans and a vest, and his mission was clear. He wanted revenge. But WWE seemed reluctant to evolve Roman Reigns' character. He kept the Shield's entrance music, his attire stayed the same, and his personality didn't really change. That lack of progress in his character made it difficult for fans to rally behind him, but there was something far more serious that caused the fans to turn against him. Daniel Bryan was back from a devastating injury, and he was the fans' chosen hero. Bryan was a wrestling god in the eyes of the WWE Universe. They wanted to see him go on to the WrestleMania main event and become the champion. But despite the fans' wishes, it was Reigns who emerged victorious in the 2015 Royal Rumble. The backlash was immediate and it was loud. The boos were thunderous, and not even The Rock could help change the opinion of the crowd. And so it was set. Roman Reigns would face Brock Lesnar for the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania 31. WWE tried to build up sympathy for Reigns on the road to WrestleMania, including pitting him against the Authority. This involved giving him the microphone and allowing him to speak, but unfortunately, this often backfired. In one of the most cringe-worthy moments in WWE history, Reigns was handed a script that had him say this.
"You are a sniveling little suck-up sellout full of suffering succotash, son."
It was dialogue like suffering succotash that made Reigns look really bad and out of his depth. The Authority forced Reigns into a match against Daniel Bryan with the WrestleMania main event spot on the line. As Reigns defeated Bryan in the main event of Fastlane, it just ignited even more resentment. They sent Paul Heyman out to try and put Reigns over. He said that Reigns was better than any other guy in history, but the fans didn't agree with Heyman's sentiment. WWE even went to the extent of experimenting with blue-eyed contact lenses in a failed attempt to make Reigns look more heroic. Reigns himself seemed frustrated by the hostility he was receiving. In an interview, he said, "As far as the hate, it makes me laugh. Everybody is a critic. Every critic I've ever had, they weren't wrestlers. Every wrestler I've ever had critique me, they were always into my stuff or what I'm doing out there. For a non-wrestler, someone who doesn't even know how to lock up, and if we did lock up, they wouldn't know what to do. For them to critique any of us, it really does pop me. That's what haters do. They hate because they hate their lives." This dismissive attitude came across as incredibly off-putting. Reigns dug himself in even further when he appeared on the Sam Roberts Wrestling podcast. The fans have to realise that as opinionated as y'all are in the way you want it, the company is the same way, and they're gonna do what they want to do. At the end of the day, I'm just a guy getting rich. Even in real life, Reigns was coming across as indifferent and downright arrogant. From a fan's perspective, the championship match at WrestleMania felt hopeless. It seemed inevitable that the show was going to end with Reigns lifting his first ever World Heavyweight Championship. However, WWE knew that the optics of 67,000 fans booing Reigns at the end of the show wouldn't look very good, and so they came up with a different finish. During the match, Seth Rollins cashed in his Money in the Bank briefcase, turning the contest into a triple threat match. Rollins smashed Reigns with the curb stomp and pinned him for the 3 count, and he won his first ever World Heavyweight Championship. The fans went home happy. Unfortunately, they wouldn't be so lucky at the next WrestleMania. Next, they paired Reigns back up with Dean Ambrose to face the Wyatt family, hoping that some of Ambrose's massive popularity would rub off on him, but it didn't work. In fact, it was starting to look like Roman Reigns had absolutely no redeeming features whatsoever. His in-ring skills were often criticised as being formulaic, and his mic skills were trash, and he came across as being an arrogant man in reality. In November 2015, Seth Rollins vacated the World Heavyweight Championship due to a knee injury, sparking a tournament to crown a new champion. Reigns would end up winning the tournament at the Survivor Series, only for Sheamus to immediately cash in his Money in the Bank contract, ending the first title reign of Roman Reigns in just 5 minutes. But it was only a brief reprieve, as Reigns would win it back soon after. Then the Authority forced him to defend it in the Royal Rumble match. He entered at number 1 before being eliminated by Triple H, who won the match and took the championship. It was now clear that the WrestleMania main event would see Reigns face Triple H, and the fans despaired. This was a match that nobody wanted to see. The match itself was a long 27-minute yawn fest that saw Reigns regaining the belt in the end. People were hoping to see Reigns turn heel, but it just never happened. They gave him an awful new catchphrase.
I'm not a bad guy. I'm not a good guy. I'm the guy.
It simply reinforced the idea that Reigns was now the centrepiece of the company, whether the fans liked it or not. Next, Reigns feuded with AJ Styles. Styles was supposed to be the heel in the rivalry, but the fans just loved him. The matches between the men were actually decent, but that's because Styles is one of the greatest wrestlers to ever step foot in the ring. Naturally, Reigns retained the title after the feud ended. In June, Raw got its lowest ever television rating, which was proof that even the most loyal WWE fans were watching something else. They simply did not want to watch Roman Reigns as WWE Champion. And then Reigns failed a drugs test. He tested positive for Adderall and received a 30-day suspension.
A pedigree to Reigns! Cover by Rollins! Seth Rollins!
when Reigns returned from his suspension, WWE brought him back into the upper mid-card. They were hoping he would get cheered if he was further down the card, but they were wrong. When Reigns held the United States Championship, the negative crowd response was so intense that the production team had to adjust it for TV. They turned the volume down on the boos and piped the sound of cheers over the top. In 2016, Reigns was voted by Pro Wrestling Illustrated readers as Most Hated Wrestler of the Year. He was the first babyface to win that award since it began in 1972. At the 2017 Royal Rumble, Reigns eliminated The Undertaker, which put them both on a path to a match at WrestleMania 33. WWE decided to make that contest the main event, and it was an absolute disaster. Most of the blame, in fact, had to go to The Undertaker, who was clearly broken down by this point. But on the episode of Raw that followed, Reigns was met with a variety of explicit chants, including "F*** you Roman, you suck, asshole, Roman sucks, shut the f*** up, and go away," which were all clearly audible on TV. Next, Reigns battled Braun Strowman in a feud that seemed to go on forever. The fans really loved Strowman at this point, and it would have made more sense for them to push him instead of Reigns. No surprise then that Reigns steamrolled through Strowman on a number of occasions, including taking his unbeaten streak. It was booking decisions like this that kept the fans firmly hating him throughout 2017. Even a reunion of The Shield didn't help matters. They were slated to face the team of The Miz, Cesaro and Sheamus at the TLC pay-per-view in October. However, those plans had to be changed due to Reigns having a viral infection, and as a result, Kurt Angle replaced him in that match. Reigns won the Elimination Chamber match in February 2018, earning the opportunity to face Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 34. In the weeks leading up to WrestleMania, WWE tried to paint Reigns as the workhorse who shows up every week, contrasting him against Lesnar, who was portrayed as a part-timer with no respect for the business. But despite these efforts, the narrative didn't change the feelings of the fans. The match itself was received very poorly by the audience, both live in the stadium and watching at home. In fact, the crowd in New Orleans greeted both Reigns and Lesnar with total apathy. They played with beach balls and chanted "CM Punk, boring," and "this is awful" throughout the match. In a surprising twist, Lesnar defeated Reigns, retaining his Universal Championship. There was a real sentiment now that Reigns was ruining WrestleMania main events just through his presence. The mega push had been going on for nearly 4 years by this point. The month after, Reigns faced Samoa Joe, and the crowd almost lifted the roof off the arena with how much hatred they had towards him. Brian Campbell and Adam Silverstein of CBS Sports wrote, "It's just impossible to ignore how poorly WWE continues to treat its own fan base. This has escalated to the point where the psychology and storyline simply makes no sense in ways that can't be good for business." The editor of ProWrestling.net went a step further to say, "Vince McMahon is completely insane when it comes to his obsession with Reigns being his company's top babyface. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results." At SummerSlam, Roman Reigns beat Brock Lesnar, ending his 308-day run as Universal Champion. On the 22nd of October, Reigns announced the unfortunate return of his leukemia, and so he forfeited the Universal Championship. In a shift from their previous animosity, the crowd showered him with a heartfelt "Thank you Roman" chant. Some things clearly far outweigh the wrestling business. Reigns made his return in February 2019 after receiving the all clear. He was met with chants of "Welcome back" and another reunion of the Shield certainly helped keep the fans behind him as a babyface. The tide started to turn back against him at WrestleMania 35 when he beat Drew McIntyre. As the COVID-19 pandemic broke out, Reigns decided to withdraw from active competition. He wouldn't be seen again until SummerSlam in August 2020. After Bray Wyatt defeated Braun Strowman to win the Universal Championship, Reigns made his surprise return by attacking both men. He looked different and acted more aggressively. The fans finally got what they'd wanted for so long. A heel turn. This was the birth of the Tribal Chief. Reigns quickly won the Universal Championship at the Payback pay-per-view where he defeated both Bray Wyatt and Braun Strowman. The Tribal Chief was the head of the table and the leader of his family. Pairing him with Paul Heyman was a masterstroke. Heyman was no longer the mouthpiece for a monster. He was now the advisor to a king. The fans were so happy that they finally had a version of Roman Reigns that they could love to hate for all the right reasons. And now clearly Reigns had finally found a version of the character that fit him like a glove. But now in 2023, WWE has once again gone too far and ruined everything. Today he's held the Universal Championship for a frankly ridiculous 3 years. In that time, he's also won the WWE Championship, so he's now referred to as the undisputed WWE Universal Champion. Rather than having Reigns lose one or both of the belts, they've instead had to introduce a new World Heavyweight Championship that's held by Seth Rollins. So in October 2023, we're back to square one. His character might have changed, but we're still left with the same issues of overexposure and fan discontent with Roman Reigns.